the massive change that we're witnessing over the last 10, 20, 30, even 40 years in property ownership. If you haven't realised, talk to us.
Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak, episode 281, Angry Mark, about just home ownership in general. Christian Stevens made a great post, I think, this morning or yesterday, showing the rapid decline in ownership, which brings the question to, is it old-fashioned? Do people not want to own a property anymore? What do you think, Mark?
Look, it's what the hell is everyone doing with their money that's young?
I'll bring up the graph so people can see what we're referring to, because I was shocked by this as well.
I'm absolutely floored that this has come up, this data. Now, can you explain it to us, Michael? This is bananas.
Bananas. So it's a graph on home ownership and first home buyers. So on the left is the percentage of population who owns, and then down the bottom is the year. In the red, it is people who are 25 to 34 years old. In the grey is 35 to 44. So the clear things to look at is in 1981.
Oh, I love your mouse work. Look at your mouse work. That's beautiful. The mouse work's nice. In
1981, 61% of the group between 25 and 34 owned a property, with 75% of people between 35 and 44 owned a property. Then fast forward 2021, it goes down 39% for the younger age and 57%, and a clear trend of descending throughout all. So is it harder to buy a property? Is it not people's motivation to buy a property anymore? What's your thoughts, Mark?
Man, that's a majority swing. That's a majority swing. So first, the younger people, the majority of younger people had bought something in that age of 24 to 34, whatever it was. Majority had bought something back in the old days. Now, majority have not bought anything. They're renting. And then as they get older, the majority there, you could see 75% of Australians had a property under their belt by the time they were 35 to 44. Now they don't. Now, Christian Stevens inspired mortgage broker. I love his stuff on LinkedIn. Inspired this morning, this debate. He's a beast, eh?
Yeah, if you love numbers and data and graphs and the real black and white picture, not a lot of the media bullshit of just spins and this. You want the numbers that you can analyze yourself, come up with your own conclusion. He obviously puts his spin on it as well, but he offers the source so you can do your own interpretation of it. So it's very, very good.
He's awesome. So, Michael, what the hell is happening? Why are young people not trending to own their own property? Christian Stevens referred to it as affordability. I beg to differ on that, actually. What do you reckon?
I reckon it's a big combination of frivolous spending and life. When I think I wasn't around the 80s, but you were. But I imagine for someone who's in the 15 to 25, keep in mind, like, you've sort of got to get started at 15 to really save to start buying by 18, 22 or 25. Like, you've got to have that push early. And I think if you look at what 15-year-olds, 20-year-olds are spending money on now and what's cool to spend money on, it's cool to buy the Kim Kardashian glasses and makeup from the other Kardashian or Jenner, actually, like Uber Eats, the delivery. There's been a whole trend in society of additional spending. I think, I know some people say like partying, but I'm sure people were partying back then as well. So think of new trends. Like I don't feel the makeup trend, wearing the clothes that you see on Instagram, having 20 sets of shoes. I don't feel it was as strong then as it was now. And I know that's where a lot of people's of the younger under 25 age, because to buy 25, 34, you have to be preparing at 8, 15, 20, 25. So you got to look at what they're doing there. And you look at that childhood trends. And then even when you get in the mid-20s, smashed avo and like the smashed avo and avocado argument is strong. Like you weren't spending $20 on breakfast in the 80s.
But I bleed for these guys like when they get old, because at the moment, if you're making an investment in property, it is clear that it will double every 10 years. It is clear if you are buying something and you don't ever buy again, you just stick to the thing that you bought, right? Just you don't upgrade. If that thing you'll buy today at 500, it will turn in 10 years time to 1 million, then to 2, then to 4. By the time you're 50 years of age, you'll have 4 million off. And if you've still got the same debt, you got 3.5 in your back pocket. These guys are never going to have that if this trend continues.
Well, this could be a pure example of what the media can do. Think about it this way, probably from the 80s or 70s, the constant story is the market's going to crash. I remember seeing someone post a story of 1987, we're about to burst first time, some crap like that. And then it was posted almost word for word in 2019. So could this be a trend of the media for 30, 40 years saying the market's going to crash, it can't keep going? And by
is it media's fault is what you're saying?
Basically, a contributing factor.
Sorry, I didn't quite catch.
I just want to say good morning to Alessio, to Jeff Luby, to Anmal. And guys, if you do want to make comments on the screen that you're watching, use Michael or Mark Novak, Michael Berger or Mark Novak's personal Facebook to watch this live. That's running on StreamYard. And guys, I'd love to know what everyone's thinking out there. I think it would be pretty hard to say this is a good trend. I think it would be pretty hard for anybody to turn around and say this is fantastic news.
Yeah, look, I'm just posting what Luke's posting, saving by properties, good debt. Now, I think there was an awesome post. I'd love to find it, or I won't be able to do it quickly. There was one by Kristen Stevens, which analysed, is it easier to buy now? Like they looked at the wages in the 80s, they looked at interest rates, because people generally say, oh, well, property prices were lower then, didn't need as much money, but one, wages were lower, but two, interest was like 10, 15, 20%. So he did a really good post reevaluating all of that.
Can you bring up his post again? Because I want to show something in there. Yeah, I think it's really important. The government's realised there's a problem here. The government stepped in and the government's tried to help. Would you agree?
Yes.
We're going to show you on this section here how the government's tried to help on 3 separate occasions. How the government's tried to help, and I'm going to show you on three separate occasions that it hasn't actually done much at all.
Well, you were saying that before as well. Like first homeowner grants haven't improved. Like look at when was a big push for first homeowners when it first came out? Would it have been about 10 years ago?
You got that graph there? It's on that graph.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were on the original post.
So if you look at this graph here, see that's when first home buyer grant was first introduced, and there's the date, 2001. So in 2001, when they introduced the first home buyers grant, it stopped the decline and it leveled out. Then there was obviously another wave where the decline started happening again. So the government introduced the first home buyer boost, which was that 15K.
Yes.
Right. So that was for new properties. They were boosting it, stamp duties, all that sort of stuff. Then in 2018, 19, the first home loan deposit scheme, that was where first home buyers can only have the ability to purchase, because the biggest complaint first home buyers had was we just can't get the goddamn deposit together.
Yeah.
So the government said, look, we're hearing you and we're going to allow you to do it with 5% deposits. This take up hasn't leveled out. It hasn't made more people buy. Furthermore, the rate of decline hasn't slowed down or leveled out. These are bad. This is bad news. This is bad news. Like, if for anyone, I'll get you to pop off that screen, Mr. Burge. But it's bad news because these guys are out there now. I had a discussion with Lisa, the lovely Lisa, this morning about this. We were talking about the younger generation having bad habits, right? And when you think bad habits, you think sinister. You think, drugs, rock and roll, sex, I don't know, whatever, bad habits.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. But bad habits, we were like, look, we're talking about one of our kids, and we were saying, look, she's out there earning X amount of money. What is she spending her money on? And it's like, it's certainly not a deposit for a home loan or savings, quite the opposite. But, it's really easy to spend that money on Uber Eats once, twice, 3 times a week. It's really easy to spend that on fashion with online shopping. It's these young guys spending money on these 4-wheel drives. These guys can dump $50,000 into stuff on a 4-wheel drive or utes or whatever. So it's interesting times, guys.
And I wonder if the push for credit is more. A lot of young kids have credit cards. They've got some sort of access to debt. You've got the payway, all this stuff. So maybe like they're getting into it a bit too young. They're forming those bad habits of spending not their money, someone else's money, and paying it back, which if you're always chasing your tail, it's very hard to get that deposit.
Well, the bank doesn't give a shit because their margins are bigger than ever.
Yeah, exactly.
So if a bank's making 2% on top of a home loan, how much do you reckon they're making on top of a credit card?
20%. Like they probably rather you have the $500,000 debt in credit, or you're depositing. If you've got $50,000 in the home loan, 2%, but $50,000 on Afterpay, 16%, where they're making a bigger margin.
Where's the margin? So they're making 2%. Because when I say they're not even making 2%, they're making 1% on top of a home loan, because the Reserve Bank rates and then the home loan rate on top. So say they're making 1% on top of a loan. If it's a loan of $500,000, the bank, maybe this is who's doing it. If it's a loan of $500,000, the bank's making 1%. They're making 5 G's a year. If it's a loan of, if it's a couple of credit cards if it's a credit card of $20,000, well, they're making 18% because they're borrowing their money at X amount and they're lending it out. It's all margin. 18% on $20,000 is how much? It's 4.
We'll put it that way. The same money for a home, like you get some money at 2%. They lend it to you on a home loan for 2.5%. They lend it to you on a credit card for 18%. You got to look. That's where their incentive is. So there's.
What about a little? We've cracked the Da Vinci Code. What about a little bit of non-payment on your credit card? That's okay. It's not okay on a mortgage, but on a credit card, it's okay. Bam!
No problem. Just you pay us next month. We'll charge you a little bit more interest. Home loan, they'll risk to take it. They'll take it.
So there it is, guys. I think the biggest winner out of the decline of people owning properties in Australia is the banks.
Yeah. Because the money's going somewhere. We're not seeing more kids or hearing of them with big savings. It's not like it's very rare. It's being spent.
Or stocks. They're not like big. They don't own plenty of stocks in the stock market. They don't own, they're asset-wise, they're very poor. Cash, it's pretty clear that their wages aren't half what they were 40, 30, 20 years ago. It's more every year. People are whinging. And people are whinging about affordability, but I don't believe that, because it is cheaper to buy than it is to rent.
So the wages, I'll read it out. Christian Stevens, 1970 annual income, $6,000 a year. 1980s annual income, $15,000 a year. 1990 annual income, $27,000 a year. 2000.
Can you screenshot that and throw it on Telegram now? Just because we're getting really good at this.
Yep.
While we're chatting. So, guys and girls, in summary, before we close out, what we've discovered today is we've looked at the home ownership rates. They are shockingly on a decline for the last 40 years. Young people between 25 and 35-ish are being screwed. It's gone from majority of them owning a property to the majority of them not owning a property. That's the trend the last 40 years. We've shown the graph earlier on if you care to bring that up. Which then moves on to the older price generation. Oh, look at that. Which then moves on to the older generation, and the older generation. There, can you control plus that puppy? There you go. Look at that. Okay, can you explain that, good sir?
So the longer you wait for, the more expensive it gets. So you got your annual income. This graph, Christian Stevens again, was comparing the income versus house prices. So basic multiplier. So you can
zoom up a bit on that.
That's my neck.
Hey, what's that? There you go. Perfect. Yeah.
There you go. So basically from 1970. So this could be why you see the graph. Look at the graph. 1970. So let's go 80 because we got the graph from 80. The multiplier was 4.6 of your wage of 15,000 of house income or house price, 2.6. But now it is 12. But hey, let me go to the bottom there where it says now 620,000. That's obviously the average, but there's plenty of homes out there because let me go to where it says it now. It says the multiplier right now is 1 million, 1.1. This is hard to, okay. 1.1. We know out there right now, there's plenty of homes. If you don't buy in your city, so that's the city average, 1.1. There's plenty of homes you can buy for 500,000. So now let's change that before you jump to the conclusion of saying, well, that's why it's no good. Well, you don't have to buy a $1.1 million house.
What about interest rates? What about interest rates? Interest rates are a quarter. So put that in your little multiplier thing in there.
So if you look at a house for 500,000, a little bit out from the CBD, Central Coast, a little bit out. Luke loves these areas. You do your wage of $86,000 a year at a $500,000 home equals 1.7 multiplier. That means it's easier to buy right now than it ever was in 1980. You just don't buy the $1 million property. I crack. How about that? So it's cheap. It's easy to buy. So in 19
says Anwar says very true. Afterpay is a shocker. Cashless society side effects don't affect the same pinch when using credit cards, and nothing tangible is leaving your hands like it was with cash. Makes you think twice.
Yeah,
I know when I used to sign a check as opposed to doing an EFT, two different. I was much more on the ball when I was signing checks.
Yeah, and I like that because obviously when you look at that, you go, 13 times harder to buy a property you look at, but that's 1.1. Plenty of properties at 500,000, which means it's easier. That was a 1.7 multiplier. It's easier now to buy a property than it was in 1980, based on that. Well,
you're right, but that's median price, I think. But going off that, it's irrelevant about the prices when you can't even afford to pay it per month, right? So that's irrelevant. What's relevant is easier when the interest rates go from 10% to 2.5%. It's 4 times easier to pay for the mortgage. So that figure can actually blow out quite we're actually, if that figure, that 1.1, you can take straight back down to 300,000.
Very true, because a loan at 300, going where you're saying, a loan at 328,000 at 10% interest is harder than a loan at $1 million at 2% interest.
Yeah. Sometimes I just think I'm really smart.
Not bad.
Not a lot though.
That's all. That's a wrap for this morning. Mark and James will be live tomorrow.
Love ya.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks for